and welcome to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist exploring human behaviour. My name is Sharon and this is Phil Pollard, and today's topic of discussion is discovering what is important to you. What do we mean by that, Phil?
Great question. It's an awesome topic. Just a bit of a preview to the show and what's coming up. We've got an awesome guest, and his specialist is around how to find out what's important to us, and that's coming up. Plus a viewer email as well, coming up later in the show. But I'm so glad you threw me that question, because here I am. I'm something years old, and what I found is sometimes I get confused. Like, what is it that's really important to me is how I always ask that question. What's important to me at any given moment, at any given day? And it's just like that's where I start to find out what's important to others as well. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah, because people talk about motivation. How do we find that, or where do we get it from? And I've been to the occasional motivational speeches, and I've seen coaches and motivational speakers go, and they go rah rah rah, all that sort of stuff, right? And they say, well, motivation is a little bit like having a shower. You need to do it daily. And look, I can agree with that if you want to keep motivated to doing something that's probably not super important to you. But for something that's super important to you, I don't believe that anyone can give you that motivation. I believe it comes from here, comes from within.
Comes from within.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're spot on.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said before, motivation, quite often, some of the clients I've found in the past that working with, they have this tendency to believe that motivation needs to be found through something external. Like something external needs to occur for the motivation to show up. But you're spot on there. Motivation needs to come from within. And motivation, to me, is finding what your purpose is.
That's beautiful. Because they say if you find your why, and that is like you'll have an idea about something, the how will fall into place. Like the how will just keep showing up. It's like, I'm sure some of your viewers, and I know you have heard of the law of attraction. So what you're putting out there, you'll start to focus on. Just like when someone is buying a particular car, they tend to see more of that particular model. So when you've got your focus set on a particular goal that you want, and it's driving you from here, not from here, because it's not a money-making venture. It's something that can make money, but it's coming from here, coming from the heart as opposed to the head. That you'll start to see all the steps that will fall into place simply because you've put it out there. And it just happens that way because that's where your focus goes. It's a massive part of it. Yeah,
it's a massive shift. And how do you get to that space? Yeah, especially when you're in that, because I know myself, I don't know about you, Phil, and the viewers, being in the past, there's been particular times where I felt completely stuck and really did not know where to find my motivation from. So, I found it hard to get out of bed sometimes, hard to just even get moving and do the household chores and things like that.
Yeah, it's a great question because, again, it's going back to the question that I ask my clients, and I know I ask myself internally as well whenever I'm stuck and I need to get moving and doing something, like what's important to me in this moment? And I ask my clients all the time, what's important to you? And I really drill down because some people could say, well, money. Well, my assertion is that money is not the important thing, because money on its own, if I said to you, now here's $1 million, but you can't spend it, you might say $1 million is important, but if you can't spend it, it's lost all its value, right? So it's not the money. I always say, so if you've got the money, what's the money going to give you? And it could be...
Great point.
Yeah, it could be freedom, and it could be a sense of being able to assist others. Whatever it is for you, that's when we start to get a touch on what's the thing that motivates you or motivates me. So it'll always come from something internal. That's why I say motivation from without, from something outside of you, will only last a short while. That's why the great motivational speakers will just say you need to do it every day. But when it's coming from what's driving you from within, you'll just get up and find a way.
That's right. Yeah. If you have a big enough why, the how takes care of itself, like you said before. And a really great place to start to figure out what that why is to identify what is it that would get you up in the morning, that would drive you, propel you forward to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. If you had to ask yourself this question, this is what I've used for myself quite often. How do I want to be remembered? What are those things that I am not doing now that I would regret if I was to pass on, let's say tomorrow or today, what are those certain things that I would regret? And it's just a really great place to start, because that creates enough drive. That creates your why.
And that's so true. And what it does, it has you not set an alarm. Like my alarm goes off at 6 o'clock, but I'm normally up at 5:30. It's because I got so much to do that day that I don't sleep in anymore, because there's just so much I want to be remembered for, and so many things I want to put in place. And I think life's too short. I mean, if you live to be 100 or 120 even, you're still a long time dead, as they say in the classics, right? So it's like, we're only here for a short time, and I've got grandkids, and I want to leave them a legacy, and even their kids and their kids' kids, right? So it's just like, okay, so let's just do something that's important, that's going to make a difference, because we all have an effect on the planet, and if we think we don't, I'm going to emphasise that you should have a look again, because each and every one of us has an impact on everyone we come in contact with, even if it's the shopkeeper or the girl who's serving your groceries, or the guy who's serving your petrol. Yeah. It's just, we have an influence, and you'll leave your mark all the time.
Everywhere you go. It's like a thumbprint.
That's why we're all individuals, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters what it is that drives you, but keep searching for the thing. And you'll know when you find the thing, because you'll just go, oh my God, and you'll feel like you're at one with the universe. There'll be no internal fighting anymore, and you'll want to get up and do it every day.
Yeah.
It's a thing that makes your heart sing. And a great thing to keep it in existence, because we all have, we look at the end goal, and then it's a chunk by chunk till we get there. But if we look at the end goal and it's like, this is too huge, we can sometimes lose our vision. So we put in place things like, and we've talked about it before, but actually doing it is a vision board. And I don't know where you put yours.
Great. I love that. I love it.
I don't know where you put yours, but I keep mine.
Yes.
Don't tell anyone, on the back of the toilet door. Well, I'm there every day for a few minutes, so I get to see exactly where I want to go. So it's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if we could summarise some, just out of this segment, some key takeaways for the viewers, for anyone in particular that is struggling for motivation, what are some of the things that they can put in place now to really get back to that motivation?
Yeah. I'd say make a list. Keep asking the questions that you need to ask yourself till you get what is it that makes your heart sing. And you'll find it'll be like a little shaky thing. And you go, oh my God, this is it. And you just write it down and really create a vision board.
Love it.
Cool. Now, after the break, we've got this awesome guest coming. And, he's travelled the world. He's a child of the universe, I call him. So hang with us, because straight after this break, we're going to introduce you to one of the most awesome people on the planet. We'll see you after this break.
Hi, and welcome back to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist exploring human behaviour. We have our guest.
Oh, Sharon, we do. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Originating from Sierra Leone, and as a youngster, he was sent to a British boarding school in Sussex, England, because his parents thought it would be better for his education, focus, and possibly his naughty boy behaviour. And it was at school that he discovered music and his love for the guitar. A few years later, he follows a girl to Australia and pursues various personal development courses in his quest to understand human behaviour, mainly his own. He's run a youth re-engagement program where the real learning about behavioural understanding grew to a whole new level. Ismail is a coach, trainer and a musician with a passion for informing, suggesting, inspiring and transforming. Please welcome Ismail Taylor-Kamara.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Lovely to have you here, Ismail.
Thank you, Sharon. That's great. It's great to be here.
Excellent.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Mate, we love having you around. I've known you for a while, and you're just an awesome human being. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. I love that.
What led you to come to Melbourne, Ismail?
To Melbourne? Well, it wasn't the weather. I'll tell you that. I must admit, I did follow a girl to Melbourne, to Australia, and fast forward a few years later, we're not together, but I'm still here, and actually Melbourne is now home. I love Melbourne, and I've gone overseas, back to England a few times and to Sierra Leone, but coming back to Melbourne feels like coming back to home now.
Wow.
Initially, my first port was Brisbane, and I still love Brisbane. But every time I went back, it was so hot. That's crazy for an African boy who grew up on the equator.
It is crazy,
you know?
a little bit.
But here I'm in Melbourne, and I love the cold. I love putting a beanie on because I have to.
And you have this passion for music. Tell us about that.
Oh, wow, passion for music. You know, music has always been a framework for my life, even before I could play an instrument. I play guitar and I sing. I never actually started out as a singer, but I remember buying myself a ukulele when I was about 6 or 7. And I've always been curious about tape recorders. My dad bought me a tape recorder and I was always recording stuff. I had no idea what I was doing. Nobody else in my family plays music. But when I went to boarding school in England, I think you mentioned earlier, we had to go to Sunday school. So Sunday school involved playing music, it involved being in a church. And actually I loved the organ music and I loved the choir. And I started to sing in the choir with my little scratchy voice as it was then. But I loved the harmony. So while I was at boarding school, you know, we could play instruments. So I went from piano to sax to flute, eventually the guitar, because it looked really sexy.
And a lot easier to carry around than a piano.
Well, not as easy as a flute, but it was really it was easy to play in the end. So, so music has been a real, I call music my counselor.
Wow.
You know, people meditate, I can play to a group of people and it has the same effect on me, or I can play on my own and it has that, calms me down, makes me feel good. I can close my eyes and just, it's such a great thing to share with other musicians as well.
Oh, of course. And now you're working as a music coach.
Well, not so much a music coach per se,
No?
coach, but musicians as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've spoken to a couple of DJs and that's really interesting because I'm not a DJ. So they kind of work different hours to me, but they're still, people have struggles. And it doesn't really matter what walk of life. They can be a musician, they can be an accountant, they can be an actor. Certainly, that was my other thing that I didn't tell you about. I mean, my past life was as an actor as well. And that was really challenging too, because you always had to try and go to an audition, had to secure it. And there's all that mind stuff that was going on before you got to your audition. Your stomach would be upside down. And then it'll be next.
Yeah.
And you're never 100% successful in auditions, are we?
No, never, ever, ever, ever. I mean, I've had some really interesting
So
ones.
how do you go about passing that experience on to your clients?
Well, good point, because I've had some really interesting auditions where, honestly, I've been had an audition. It seemed as though there was about a cast of 100. I mean, that was just the production team, and they don't tell you that. You walk in, and it's like, that's the internal stuff that goes on. And I just wish I'd done coaching then, because I'd have probably learned how to manage my state. And it was something I fumbled on, because you walk in and there's all these people waiting for you to do your piece. And it's really interesting now as a coach, when people walk into the room for the first time, whether it's a group facilitation or whether they're one-on-one, they don't know what to expect. And sometimes it can be intimidating, whether there's only, whether there's 5 or 15 of them, where they go, and you can see them shutting down. And I had that, but I had to talk myself through it. It was having a really strong why, which I didn't realize at the time.
Got it.
But having a really strong why and forgetting about the how. I'm hungry, and this has got to work. I've got to get this gig.
That's right.
And that was what really pushed me through. So later on, I found a technique that, that's what I was doing. Wow. So, it's finding ways to articulate it, and the beauty is sharing it to others. And I actually bring that in my gigs when I play as well.
So what was that technique?
That technique was going, well, as I said, is, why do I need this? And going through and making it a little checklist. Why is it important? Why do I need it? I've got to pay my rent. I want to travel. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a car.
Things, yeah.
But it was more important than that. But also it was about the self. If I can score this, and I feel really good about myself, and then of course your confidence rises. Certainty rises. You're more focused. You're more connected, and then really at the end of the day, it is about connecting with other people and sharing that.
Cool.
So yeah.
You said before that you change your state. What do you mean by that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, a state change is really a physiological change. It really is, and that view is changing how your body is going through that process.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I'm a sort of person that I sweat when I eat. I love chili, and I have to go through a state change. Usually that does it for me. It's like, whoa, this is really hot, and it goes right through me. There's a state change right there. But you imagine doing the same thing. Chocolate does the same thing for us. You know, there's other things that do that. But it was really going through the process where, when the nerves and the anxiety come up, and you know you get that dryness in your throat, especially if you have to sing at an audition, it's like, oh my God, okay, get a grip of yourself. Get a grip of yourself, get a grip of yourself. And it really is, there's something, I mean, I love TED Talks and all that. There was a real great TED Talk about changing, faking it.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Ismail, we're going to have to pause you there. Yeah. We're actually coming up to a break. I'd love you to keep going.
And we might keep going straight after the break.
We will keep going straight after the break. So just stick around, our viewers, and we'll be back straight after the break. Hi, and welcome back to Coaches on the Couch, your relationship specialist exploring human behaviour. Now, next up we have our viewer email. Phil.
Okay, so here we go. Hi, Sharon and Phil. For most of my life, I've struggled with my motivation. It usually comes at times where I'm feeling like I am living Groundhog Day, where every day seems the same and I feel like I've nothing to fight for and my energy is running low, often feeling lost in life. There are times where I feel motivated, but most times I don't. And this usually makes me feel really down. I have a fairly decent job that pays the bills. Do you have any advice to help me get past this for good, as I'm completely over feeling like this? I want to wake up motivated and have something to live for. So this has come from Jacinta from Footscray. Do you think we can help out Jacinta?
Oh, absolutely. We can, can't we, Ismail?
Yep, absolutely.
Look, Jacinta, just firstly, recognising you for what you've just written into us. I know myself personally, I have been there in the past quite often. I really get the space that you might be coming from, that Groundhog Day experience. It can be really, really de-energising and very unfulfilling. And so I just wanted to acknowledge you there and for wanting to take that step forward and exploring new ways of being able to get past it. So firstly, just noticing what you'd said there, that in the past you have had motivation in the past where you felt from time to time it's sort of come and go. My first point there would be to recognise where those times were in the past where you did feel motivated. You know, what was it that you were doing that enabled you to feel motivated? What was it that you were connected to? We haven't broken down values yet. I might hand that over to you to do, Ismail, but yeah, just identify those times in the past where you had felt motivated. So think back to those times. What were you doing? Where were you? Who were you associating with? How were you feeling? What was it that was connecting you to feeling motivated?
Yeah. Probably that stuff when Ismail was talking about. Remember when he said he was writing lists?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. First of all, I think the first step of change is that courage to step out and go, I have a problem, you know, I need a change. And I think that's fantastic. And it's always great to get the acknowledgement. And the acknowledgement is actually connected to affection, because there's a couple of things here that there's so many different ways we could slice this up, but exercise, discipline and affection I think are really important, because she's got a job that pays reasonably well. She's lacking motivation, so obviously something's missing. Sharon talked about values. It's really important to find out what your values are. People usually go, my values are this, my value is love, my value is integrity. What does that mean? You know, we stick it on a resume, but what do they actually give you? And this is where the end values are. Well, if love is this, great, but your definition of love and Sharon's definition of love and mine could be completely different. So if they're completely different, it means that our end values are different, and actually where the outcome is going to be completely different each time.
You're spot on, Ismail. You know? So how would you break that down? Because I get that quite often people don't really understand what values are and how to break them down. So what would be your advice on how to break them?
I mean, I go through a really simple exercise with them. I don't know if it's right, but it actually seems to work with some of the clients I have. I go, give me your values. And that's a struggle in itself. values this, 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 this. Then we'll go, okay, we do a kind of a values list, and we go, okay, and it's a simple, we go, top value, the value you got number one, compare your love to helping people. People always put love in helping people as though, you know, they want to look good.
Yep.
And that's okay, that's fine. So between, okay, success or money and helping people, I want to help people, okay? Between money and helping people and integrity, what's more important? And they'll go, helping people and something else. They go until you keep cutting back, and then all of a sudden they go, actually helping people ain't that important. It's actually freedom.
Yes.
And you go, okay, well, let's look at that. Let's explore the freedom. What does actually freedom mean? What does it actually give you? And where is it going to get you? You know, and why, which you're talking about. And I love that question, the why that you brought up earlier, because why do you want the freedom? And then we explore that more. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, the core, then you get into beliefs. And then the value can completely change. It's actually, no, it's not the freedom, it's something else. I just want a peace around me.
Yeah, spot on, Ismail.
It makes so much sense. So I've had clients when I've asked them the same question, what's important to you, which is another way of saying what are your values. And they might say something like health.
Yeah.
And you can look at someone and you can say, if they say to me that health is a good idea, is their value, I'll know it's probably a good idea in some instances. They want to be healthy because you can tell by looking at someone if they do value their health. Yeah. And someone, I'll say, well, really, let's explore that. Yeah. Because every decision we've ever made, this is everyone on the planet, by the way, every decision in that moment, we've based it on our highest value in that moment, at that time. Yeah. And probably without even realising it.
That's great, because it is a time thing too.
And
amazing.
It'll change in the moment.
Absolutely.
And the hierarchy of values, once you understand them and how it works, it's super powerful, because if you can really drill down and find it, and of course a great way to do it is finding a coach or a really great friend who can just keep pushing you and pushing you and have you feel uncomfortable, because that's where everything happens. When you get that, I don't know what you're talking about.
Or somebody ticks you off.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is a value thing.
It's a good way of looking at it.
So and also, but it's not important to me.
Jacinta, another way of looking at it would be, what do you enjoy talking about the most?
Yes.
You know, what type of groups or hobbies or things that you find yourself associated with? Yeah. That is a really great way to pull apart and see what your values are.
Perfect takeaway. What's your final point?
My final point is if she's feeling demotivated, maybe exercise is something she needs to explore. What is her ritual? First thing in the morning or last thing at night? What does she do to get her to that place?
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Sharon, how would you wrap it up?
I'd just love to say, Jacinta, if you could start to identify what those values are for you. You know, going back to what I said before, those times in the past where you felt motivated, what was it specifically that you found that motivated you? There's a really great way to tap into what those values are, as well as having a look at what are those conversations that you're having with your friends, family, anyone that you're associated with, that you find lights you up.
Perfect. And make that list. Really, really make that list.
Thanks very much for watching the show today. And Ismail, thanks for coming on down.
My pleasure.
If you would like to know more about Ismail and his services and more about today's episode, head on over to coachesonthecouch.com. That's it for this week. Look forward to seeing you again next week.